2, 1. This is podcast number 6.
Sponsored by Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston is getting crushed at IFAST
we're
today.
Hardcore. We're hardcore. Slipknot.
That's right.
Five Finger Death Punch.
Yes.
Whitney Houston.
That's right. I'll take Whitney over Britney Spears any day, though.
Now, see, I have a soft spot.
For Britney Spears?
For Britney Spears, I really do.
I think Jay just beat it out of me.
No, I think if there was we can't really have this, but if there was a wrestling match, I think if I would be in Britney's corner.
Okay.
I think I would have to go there.
Have you seen the Whitney documentary?
I have. I've seen parts of it, but I think that I don't know. It's just a weird. I was never attracted to the Whitney Houston thing, but I don't know.
Amazing voice. Amazing voice. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's a good singer, but I don't know. Just a weird Britney Spears thing. Anyway. Revealing way too much.
All right.
Way too much.
So I'll bring us back in. So, as promised, we're going to talk about Gen Pop clients today.
Yes.
We discussed the pros and cons of working with elite and or professional athletes last time, and that is its own unique thing. But, I think people always assume that if you put an Instagram post out or they see somebody mention you that is a high-profile athlete, that's all you train. Right? Without the understanding that, in general, unless you're Eric Cressy in Cressy Performance, where they have like a very distinct section of their population that is baseball and, again, a high number of pros, most facilities that have pro athletes, it is a side piece of their business or a very small piece. General population is generally the much bigger swath of people that are coming in their door. Yeah, that's one of the, I would say that's at the extreme end of the specialization element. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think they've done it right for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they seem to be doing okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he's struggling.
Yeah.
You can get a sunburn in Florida.
That's true. He's not the Tannis guy. I mean, he's darker than either of us, but...
But he doesn't get a lot of basketball players.
That's true.
And nor does he get a lot of soccer players.
Yeah.
And so again, there's an element of, like I said, that's a very, very specialized service. And,
Absolutely.
And while we do have our elements of specialization, we've always been sort of this broad exposure kind of a place.
Yeah. So I think the most common question that people have is, okay, if you train a person like me, like that's how they frame it, like they are somehow a lesser individual because they don't get paid to play sports.
Right.
They say, well, how do you treat me differently? And so I wanted to mention a couple of things, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this as well. I think the way I describe this to people when I'm on the phone, because I take a large majority of the calls that come in now, like prospective new clients, and I always tell them, well, there's a couple things, right? You're not an elite athlete, and that's fine. The biggest differences are the intensity, right? So everybody's in a perfect world. Everybody can squat and hinge and push and pull and do those basic movement patterns, right? And everybody's got their own allotment of each based on their own body. But the intensity is generally different.
Sure.
So when somebody comes in and they see Jeelan deadlifting 600 pounds on a trap bar, that's not respective of what you will probably be able to do, right? But that doesn't mean you can't train that pattern or you can't train that movement to the best of your ability. So I always think intensity. I always think complexity, right? The athletic nervous system is just different. It's what gives them the ability to knock soccer balls from 30 meters out and put it in a specific place and shoot a basketball the way that they do. So that carries over into the gym, right? The level of complexity that we can do with a high-level athlete is different. But again, that doesn't mean you can't do a throw or you can't do some form of plyometric activity. But it leads me to my last piece, which is, the question we always ask, what are the tissues prepared for? Just because you played sports 20 years ago and you want to get back to that feeling and you want to develop that body, that's great.
Right.
But you also had 15 or 18 years of development that led up to that. So we've got to recondition you.
We always compare ourselves to when we were at our perceived best.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the brain still remembers
Yes.
What it felt like to play high school football or basketball or baseball or soccer or whatever it was that was your sport. And so we always compare ourselves to that. And because we do have that memory, we think that we're the same person.
Yes.
But let me go back to your mention of complexity. I think that even our general population clients, the people that would perceive themselves to be the non-professional athlete or not nearly as advanced, they do come with their own measures of complexity. Some people have adaptations that have occurred over a number of years that always have to be taken into consideration. So it's not just the preparation element to do something of a higher fitness level, but some people have conditions that we have to respect or we have to design around.
Yep.
And so they have their own levels of complexity.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think that this is something that people need to recognize as to when you would select a service like ours, because we're not for everybody, and we know that.
Right.
But the reality is that I think that there's a lot of people that value the outcome, but they also have other values, is how much time do I need to spend? Because I think we have some very intelligent clients.
Absolutely.
That could do anything that we ask of them on their own, given the desire to learn more and the desire to expend their time in that realm.
For sure.
And I don't think that they're willing to do that, because they always come here with another goal.
Yeah.
It's not about the gym stuff.
Yes.
It's about, I want to do this outside of the gym, and I'm not willing to spend the time to learn it myself. I'm not willing to invest, the effort that it would take for me to learn it. Teach me or instruct me so I can get there faster. And so again, like I said, I think that there's always that element that underlies the commonality within our clientele.
Yep. And I think that's where, we've talked about this numerous times just in our 6 episodes, but it's constantly finding the person so that. With an athlete, it's a pretty straight or direct path. It's like, I want to do this so that I'm a better basketball player or football player, soccer, baseball. Insert the blank or fill in the blank and you're good.
Right.
Versus with the Gen Pop client, sometimes there's layers to that, right? It's, I want to lose 20 pounds. Doesn't mean at first glance to us, it doesn't mean it's just 20 pounds. 20 pounds so that I feel more confident with my spouse, or I feel better, I fit in these clothes that I used to fit into when I was in my best shape. Right. It's constantly trying to peel back that onion and figure out, okay, what does this really mean to you? Versus just this arbitrary number. Like, again, powerlifting is great because it's a numbers-based thing, but for our people, it's a number so that it leads them to something else.
Right, and again, that is the most powerful concept, and sometimes I don't think people even recognize it themselves.
Yes.
Until they're in this environment, and until they are presented with that question, and then you want to see somebody get inspired, and you want to see somebody become more successful. There's nothing more exciting to watch somebody discover their true why, because I think that a lot of people come in with the best of intentions, and they think they understand what they need to do or what they want to do, and the reality is like there is that underlying issue or desire or need or want, or however we want to define that, and to watch somebody discover that through some measure of physical activity where whether it be they're dragging away the sled or they're lifting a heavy trap bar or whatever, and then they recognize the fact that, oh, this is the means for me to get to where I really want to go, and now the level of investment that they are able to provide dramatically increases.
Well, I think you talked about being able to demonstrate success when you get somebody on a table or whatever, when you're talking about getting buy-in. I think there's nothing better than, because there isn't that direct outcome in the gym sometimes, right? It's not like, oh, I hit this weight and now, but it's, you train for a little bit and then you go do the target activity, whatever that is, and you're like, oh my gosh. Like, again, coming back to a guy like Rick, who does these crazy extreme hikes, or Nisa, who enjoys gardening. Like, they can go to their target activity and they're like, wow, I did that at a really high level. And now, like you said, the investment goes through the roof.
Yeah, and they don't even have the recognition at that moment, which is kind of cool. It's like they were totally oblivious to the fact that, look at what I just did.
Right.
And then the reflection is, you know what, I couldn't have done it had I not been here and done the things that I did first that prepared me or allowed me to do the things that I really love to do.
Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I think this kind of fits seamlessly in, because in case you guys haven't noticed, we do things a little bit differently here versus maybe some other gyms where maybe you go in and you just get smashed day one and every other day you enter. Things are a little bit different, and there's more of a build-up phase. Right. I would describe it as here. So talk to me a little bit about meeting and managing needs, because there are some people that come in and they have this idea of, I'm at this level of fitness, and outwardly they may look very, very fit, but you and I, after say an evaluation or something like that, have recognized, wow, there's some serious things that we need to dial back if we're going to get you beyond this point. Right. So talk to me a little bit about that. How do you meet and manage needs with clients that maybe think they're a little bit ahead of where they actually are, based on our evaluation? Right.
Well, and again, this is the battle of perception of what they think they're capable of, and then what do they demonstrate. And so we do have that specialized knowledge that allows us to identify. It's like, hey, I want you to recognize this. And so we can show them these elements through our process. So whether it be in the purple room, where maybe there's somebody that has a pain-related issue that needs to be resolved first, well, we can. That's a very simple representation. It's like, look, you can't physically do this right now, but let me show you how you can. And then we recapture that, and then we reestablish their ability to move within any context, and then there's this smooth transition from the purple room out into the training hall. But now we have the next step, and it's like, hey, look, under these circumstances, you're safe, you have adequate capabilities, but under this circumstances, which is where you want to go, now we got to show them the distance. Like, okay, so here's where you are today. Here's where you want to go. So your point A is right now, and so here's how we're going to move you in that direction. And we allow them to perform at what they perceive as satisfactory level. So rather than generically, driving them into the ground as many facilities would as in a group where everybody's doing the same thing, we now individualize this process, and then it allows them to say, oh, I'm building something. And then they start to recognize that process. And then they see the value in, oh, if I would have just come in, maybe I would be somewhat successful, but by respecting the process, now we have somebody that, and when you talk about the client buy-in, it's like that's how you do it, is you get them to recognize what their needs really, really are. And then we build that, and they see it, and now they have this huge foundation of confidence that they may not have had before, and the capabilities to go with it, and then again, that leads them to where they really want to go, which is to do what they really, really love outside of the gym.
Absolutely. I think for the trainers that listen and watch this, I think there's a couple things that we do intuitively here now that maybe other people would take for granted. So like one thing that I think we do a good job of is shifting the context and the goalposts a little bit. So a lot of people come in and they assume the only way I can get strong legs is if I back squat. Right? And we've seen that, and we both know that, some people just don't back squat particularly well, or not with a technique or style that we would be comfortable with, right? And I'm probably a great example of that. I have to work really hard to squat. But there's nobody that says, there's no police that says if you want to be a better basketball player, soccer player, gardener, mom, grandma, that you have to barbell back squat. So we shift those goalposts, and now we're going to teach you, hey, we're going to teach the squat pattern with a goblet, or a 2 kettlebell position, or a plate, and we're going to give you those tools. Another strategy that we tend to use a lot too is, there is, in certain instances, a lot of motor re-education up front, and teaching people how to move in a more efficient and effective manner, but they still want to feel like they're training. So, well, that doesn't mean we can't work really hard at the back end of your workout. We can't put you on an Airdyne and 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off for 8 to 10 minutes, you're huffing and puffing pretty good. So there's ways to meet and manage what they feel like they want to get out of a session while still checking boxes on our end that makes us feel like, okay, we're moving towards something here.
Well, there's many roads that lead to Rome, as they say, right? And part of that, I think, comes with our level of experience. So I'm 30 plus years into this, and if I was to compare my own understanding as to the things that I could do with any one human being from 30 years ago to now, it's like, okay, maybe I had 5 or 6 things, and now we're in the hundreds of possible options.
For sure.
And again, I think that's one of the things that a specialized service needs to be able to provide, because think of the variety of people that we have that come in here, and we could take 4 people that all may have the same end goal or target, and we can get there any number of different ways. And I don't think people recognize that fact. They come in with the mindset of there's one way, when the reality is, and this goes with our athletes too, because I think there's a gross misperception in that realm as well. But just having the understanding that there are so many different ways to achieve the same outcome, is impactful.
For sure. So another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I think this will kind of just smoothly transition from that last point, is a lot of people assume, based on our clinical backgrounds and the fact that I've done some rehab, and you're obviously very well known in that field, is that when you go out on the gym floor, it is basically light physical therapy, right? Or they assume that it is physical therapy. And to kind of play on that and take advantage of that, you actually created an entire program called Refit for your physical therapy clients.
Right.
So I would love to hear about what prompted you to do that and what that transition looks like, because you've said it numerous times, like, hey, we've got everything we need in here, but now you need some stuff out there that's going to help all this stick.
Right. So, if you were to look at a broad stroke of the people that come in as physical therapy clients, most of them fall into the category of physically active. So they are now faced with the fact that there's something that I cannot do that I want to be able to do because of a pain-related issue or an injury or some realm outside of what they really, really enjoy doing, but for whatever reason they cannot.
Right.
And so there was a number of situations where I would get someone to the point of discharge, and then you always get the same question. Well, now what do I do?
Right.
And so they're waiting for the 2-minute answer, the hack or the tip that's going to say, oh, do this.
Right.
When the reality is I have no idea. Right. You know? And it's like, well, what do you want to be able to do?
Right.
Oh, okay. So why don't you come in? Well, and I do this out of the desire to help someone. As long as they're an active physical therapy patient, we will do refit appointments as many times as we need to teach them to be safe and to execute in the gym.
Yep.
And so there has to be a way to transition from this rehabilitative mindset to one of fitness. While there are similarities, there are differences.
Right.
And so what I wanted to do was to create that transition and to make it as seamless and smooth and comfortable as possible for people. And so that's where the refit came from. And so they want to get back to the gym. I can't give them a 2-minute answer. It's impossible. Right. It is impossible. But what I can do is I can teach them how to execute safely and effectively. And so we say, well, what's the goal? What are you trying to do? Okay, so these are some of the things that I would have you do in the gym, and this is what I would want you to do on your own. And so I can literally demonstrate that to them, and they get to execute with my eyes on them. Yeah. And so again, it's been a very, very powerful experience in a number of cases where the reality of what they were doing, they recognized the fact that, oh, I was causing problems for myself by doing this.
Right.
And the one thing that, well, it's probably not a purely valid comparison. I always compare it to, like, okay, so if you had to do your own dental work, how well would you do it?
Yeah.
And so 363 days a year, you're pretty good at it. You brush your own teeth, you floss your own teeth. And then twice a year, you got to go to the specialist, and he shows you, oh, this is what you really need to do.
Right.
And so that I kind of equate it to that. It's like, you know what? Most of the time you're probably okay, but when you're in a situation where you're really trying to make some progress or you're trying to really work towards a goal, you probably need some specialized instruction. And so that's where the refit is. And that's why I wrote the book, the All Gain No Pain, was an answer to the question of what do I do now?
Right.
And so, again, I think that's something that's missing. And that has to be part of this process. And we see it with our athletes that maybe they run out of insurance or they're at the end of their physical therapy and they're still, at a fitness deficit. It's like I see the same thing across the board with all of my patients. They have the same kind of needs, and so that's where refit comes in.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's just a lot clearer when somebody's coming off like a major injury, right? They've done the standard PT after an ACL tear, and then and I don't know why this happens, but they say, okay, you've checked all these boxes that I need from you. You can go and play your sport again, without this understanding that there's actually this really massive gap in between having strength on a table or on a dynamometer or whatever strategy you're using to test and evaluate versus being able to run and be reactive and plant and cut and all the other things that are going on in sport.
Oh, there's so many fitness needs that are associated with the return to play, return to sport, and again, it doesn't matter to me who we're talking about, whether we're talking about an athlete that's coming off of a surgery or a specific injury, or a 45-year-old accountant that wants to run the mini, or just wants to be able to work out in the gym and still look and feel good. They all have a similar need in the ability to execute, and some people just don't have, like I said, the time nor the concern of gaining specialized knowledge. They just think it's a matter of just going in and killing time. Some people will be successful doing that,
right?
And then there's that other group that won't, and they need the help,
right? So the last thing I wanted to touch on was another common question that we get, which is, do you still use the R7 model with your Gen Pop clients? And fantastic question. And I think this speaks to the power of that system and the fact that, yes, it is a system, and yes, it is a template that you can use, but it's fully customizable, right? So you can use it with any type of athlete or Gen Pop client. So when people ask that question, again, it comes back to that kind of thought process. When you're writing that first program, what are the tissues prepared for? So maybe down the line, somebody can jump and cut and do all these things and get back to playing recreational basketball or soccer. But if they haven't done anything for 5 years, it's going to take some reconditioning. It's going to take some time. So the way I describe this is, you can always use all of these components, but if you're going to do R4, which is the reactive or the explosive piece, you just have to meet them where they're at. Their explosiveness may be throwing a med ball once and then bending over and picking it up, or on a very low level, maybe just jumping rope is their plyometric.
Right.
And that's hard for some people to gather at first, but it's like once you start to think of it in that fashion, that model can be used with almost anybody.
Right. Yeah, it's not just for athletes. Because any activity can be graded.
Yes.
In regards to its intensity, its frequency, take something as simple as a box squat, which many would associate with powerlifting. We use a box squat to rehabilitate pelvic floor problems with females.
Right.
It's the same exercise. Now it doesn't require 600 pounds of load, but the principles that are applied are the same. It's just graded to the needs and the abilities of the individual. And so when we have a structure like an R7, that's just a process. The process is adaptable to the human being. And again, if we can just break our arms patting ourselves in the back here, by putting together as much experience as we do have this infinite number of options that allows us to manipulate this process to meet the needs of the individual.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it's pretty cool when you see 70 and 80-year-old clients that are throwing medicine balls and getting their bodies prepared for what the activities they want to do, right? If you're going to go and strike a golf ball at 80, you're going to try and use as much power as possible.
Right.
So, hey, we're going to try and prepare you for that, so when you go out there, you can be as successful and keep yourself healthy, enjoying the things that you enjoy doing.
Well, that's ultimately the goal, no matter who we're talking about, whether we're talking about the high-level athlete or whether we're talking about, like I said, the general population person that comes in with just the desire to do something that's a little bit more active outside of the gym, or maybe they are a Rick that wants to climb a mountain, you know, or run a desert. We've had that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we get some of that outlandish stuff, but the reality is that for most people, I don't think they know what their true capabilities are. They think that they are limited.
Yes.
You know, permanently, when the reality is that's just not the case.
It's the current state.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't know. You don't know what your potential is until you recognize what you can recapture. There's tremendous value in seeking out a specialized service, whether you do it here, whether you do it somewhere else. I want people to know that you know, what they perceive as their limitations or their limits are not necessarily the reality.
Yeah. So many people feel broken. You know, and not just people that come in here, but people that come out on the gym floor, and for whatever reason, right? Whether it's physical, whether it's mental, emotional, you know?
Yeah.
It's fun to see them over time. I mean, again, I'm not even going to say success, but just, you know, the years and seeing this time and time and time again, it's like, look, we have more confidence in them than they do.
Right.
You give them a little bit of that, and they have a little bit of success, and it's amazing to see what they can accomplish.
Yeah, well, that's what keeps us coming back too, because
Absolutely.
You know, we gain as much from our clients as they gain from us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is fun, man. This is good.
This is good. Yeah.
Hopefully, if you're viewing at home or listening on the road, you enjoyed this and took a thing or two away. And if you ever have questions or you want to, you know, you got a specific topic you'd like to hear about, we'd love to hear from you. But that's all I have for this week, man.
Send your questions our way. We will see you next week.
Yep. Take care.